Hi folks, I'm Gino the Painting Acolyte. Today I'm going to talk to you all about what you need and what you need to know to get started airbrushing. This is not a video about why you should get an airbrush, that's up to you and your doctor. This is just a tutorial about what you need to get started. Let's go ahead and launch straight into the actual things you'll need to acquire to begin. First and foremost, and unsurprisingly, you will need an airbrush. There is a massive range of quality and price and form factor when it comes to these little pistols, and it's easy to be intimidated. I own here a Badger Patriot 105, which was my first airbrush, and then an Iwata Eclipse HPCS, which was my upgrade. The Badger was my starter airbrush, and while it isn't the cheapest on the market, it definitely has a very, very nice price to performance ratio. It's a strong, useful, good, and reasonably priced airbrush that is a really good starter pistol. The Iwata was my upgrade, and offers a finer and more precise spray and really easy control and disassembly. Both of these airbrushes are great, and I would recommend both, but the Badger is definitely the better starter option. Another option to start out with is to go with one of those cheapo garbage airbrushes off of Amazon that are like 20 bucks. These should work perfectly fine, and are perfectly fine for varnishing and priming and all sorts of imprecise work. You just won't get really fine detail spray out of them. If you're trying to be incremental in your investments, getting a chunky brush to learn and practice on isn't a bad idea. Now, to power the airbrush, you need an air compressor. These also come in lots of sizes and shapes, and to be honest, these are the things I know the least about. I wouldn't recommend a tankless compressor, as from what I've heard, those have limited and inconsistent air pressure outputs. I will link the exact air compressor I got off of Amazon below, which is also the exact air compressor that Goobertown Hobbies recommended in his beginner airbrush video, which I will also link below. Keep the pressure no higher than 40 psi, leave it in a spot away from your feet and not near anything like super easily flammable. Occasionally clean out the moisture trap and you'll be good as gold. Next, we have some safety concerns. A properly rated and well-fitted respirator will help keep plastic particles out of your lungs, where they shouldn't be, and should be worn at all times when you're airbrushing. A stash of nitrile gloves will help keep paint from absorbing into your skin and help save time spent hand washing. And chief amongst the safety concerns is a vent hood, which will pull the airbrush overspray fumes out of your workstation at home. You can build your own vent hoods if you have that kind of experience, but I just picked up this pretty cheap and technically mobile and movable vent hood off of Amazon that works a treat. It's got built-in lights to help when painting and a hose you attach to the back and put out a window to get the paint fumes out. A vent hood is pretty mandatory, but if you don't have a window or something to let the exhaust out, Ninja uncovers in his airbrush video that you could probably just extract through the hose or the hole in the back of the vent hood into a big stack of those replaceable furnace filters. I've never done that before, but it seemed to make sense and sounded like a not terrible idea. I'll post a link to that below. Finally, before we get into the act of airbrushing, we have some consumables and miscellaneous tools to get. Airbrush thinner will help keep your paint smooth and flowing out of your airbrush. Isopropyl alcohol and airbrush cleaner are for keeping your airbrush clean and avoiding jams and paint color contamination. A sprayable bottle of water is useful to have on hand. An old pickle jar with some junk brushes in it for jumping out excess paint and cleaner and cleaning your airbrush. Some various cleaner tools. This spray jar thing, I don't know what this is actually called, but you can rest your airbrush on it and spray out excess paint into it. Some quote-unquote precision cotton swabs. These are just regular, like, Q-tips, but the cotton is packed much more tightly, and they're really useful for cleaning. Don't get the fancy ones from miniature companies like Tamiya. I got this whole box cheap on Amazon. Some makeup sponge wedges are super helpful for cleaning, as well as to mix paint in a way I'll demonstrate in a bit. Before we start airbrushing though, it's important to learn how to disassemble and reassemble your airbrush. This is important for cleaning, troubleshooting issues, and avoiding damage to the brush. Your brush should come with a manual. I really highly recommend reading it and keeping it somewhere nearby. As well, you can almost certainly find a tutorial online for how to disassemble and reassemble your exact airbrush. Once you've got that under your belt, it's time to start airbrushing. Now, there are two cardinal rules when it comes to airbrush use. First and foremost, if something feels wrong, listen to that feeling. If your airbrush feels sluggish and stuck, it's probably jammed and you need to clean it. This is key to avoiding damage to your airbrush and needle and needing to replace parts. If something doesn't feel right, that's probably the case. Second rule, it is always better to underdo something. You won't waste paint if you don't pour too much into the cup. You won't ruin paint jobs if you underdo your spray. But if you overdo something, it is much harder to fix it. So your compressor and hood are on, and you're ready to get painting. Different paints have different consistencies, and some are pre-mixed to be used in airbrushes straight out of the bottle. Some aren't though, and it's good to thin down some paint. You want your paint to be a little thicker than water. It should flow easily. I squirt a little thinner in and then add my paint. From there, you can mix the paint with a junk brush you keep clean. You can also mix your paint by backflowing into the cup. This is as simple as completely blocking the nozzle of the brush with one of these makeup sponges, and gently pushing down and pulling back on the trigger. Gentle is key here. Doing this backflow mixing is easier on my Iwata, where you can just push the sponge onto the nozzle, but with the Badger, you kind of need to pinch the exposed needle and press the sponge against the nozzle. The paint should bubble up a bit in the cup. And mix. Give it a test spray by pushing down on the trigger and then pulling back gently and in smooth, short motions. If the paint doesn't come out smoothly and easily, add some more thinner and mix some more. If everything's working right, it should feel like it's working right. You shouldn't feel any resistance at all when you're painting with your airbrush. When it comes to painting with the brush, it takes some getting used to, but should feel very natural with a little practice. The key is twofold. First, always remember to push the trigger down before you pull it back at all. Second, you want to pull the trigger backwards in short, controlled bursts. Don't hold it down really heavily, or you'll make a mess. Remember, it's always better to underdo it. If you're nervous, you can practice your airbrushing with simple plain water in your cup. Now it's time to clean the airbrush. There are two levels of cleaning your airbrush. The in-between colors clean and the end-of-the-day deep clean. To clean in-between colors, you first want to dump out the excess paint you didn't use. From there, cleaning it is as simple as putting some water, some cleaner, some isopropyl alcohol into the cup. Swirl it around a bit, gently mix and scrape a little bit with a junk brush and dump it out. You can also do the backflow makeup sponge method for cleaning, and it's really effective. Mix up some cleaning stuff and get some bubbling going, and then dumping out the dirty mixture. Keep repeating this process until the water runs clear before you spray anything out of the airbrush. If you spray out the dirty cleaning mix, it could lead to jams and contaminations. Rinse everything out with water, give it a quick spray, and you're good to go. Now for the deep clean. There's quite a few different ways. The easiest and my most favorite way is to disassemble the airbrush, putting the pieces that will fit into an ultrasonic cleaner with some cleaning liquid, and letting it go. If you don't want to invest in an ultrasonic cleaner yet though, you could also disassemble a brush and let the pieces soak in some alcohol and cleaner solution in a small container. Here I use this old empty margarine container. Either way though, keep the needle separate and clean it separately to avoid bends or scratches on the needle. Use an old toothbrush and some of the cleaning tools you have to get everything spick and span. Once the airbrush pieces are clean and dry, assemble your airbrush with some lubricant to ensure smooth use, and you're ready to get going again. And that's the very basics of starting airbrushing. I'll leave links to everything I've mentioned in the description, and if you have any questions or advice or anything at all, leave them in the comments below. I really hope you liked this video and found it useful. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe. I'm Jimmy the Painting Acolyte, and I'll see you next time. Happy airbrushing. Take care, and bye-bye.